Hello, welcome to the Yes You May live stream podcast. Today, I have a special guest here with me, and we're going to talk all about traits of leadership and EQ, which I'm going to let her explain because I need to know more about it, frankly, and I think we all do. And she is a leader, a trainer. She is somebody that I have come to know, and I'm really excited to bring her in and have a conversation with her. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to Beverly Lewis.
Hi there. It's good to
Hey.
see you. I'm excited to be here and to get to talk about some important things so we can all grow together.
Yes, that's like my whole thing. Let's all grow together. Live,
Yes.
learn, grow. It is so important to take the time to learn and grow yourself. I mentioned EQ. I know you are a leadership trainer, you're an executive trainer. Give me like the Cliff Notes version of what you do. And then I want you to explain EQ because I feel like this is super important as well.
It is. And actually, as a trainer, my focus is on helping individuals and teams raise their EQ because what EQ is, it stands for emotional intelligence or really emotional quotient. And, most of us don't know our IQ, but we kind of have expectations of our performance based on our IQ, which we used to think was kind of static throughout our lifetime. We would get it tested when we were in school, and then oftentimes, you and I probably don't even know our IQ score off the top of our head, unless you're in Mensa and have a reason,
Right.
a reason to boast about it.
I
It's
like
like,
to think
okay.
I'm smart, but not that smart.
Here's the thing, though, about EQ. We do know EQ is the awareness of your own emotions and an awareness of other people's and the ability to respond appropriately to both. That's the key word, respond appropriately.
I caught that
And
appropriately.
yes, so what I do is I work with teams on developing higher EQ because if you have a culture of people that have high EQ, frankly, whether it's in a family or a boardroom or a community organization, wherever it is, it is going to be a healthy culture if people are responding appropriately. And honestly, with this day and time where we see so many people not responding appropriately, everybody's so hot, right? Everybody's running hot. So
Yes.
the great news about EQ is it's not static. Anybody can choose to raise their EQ. And I like to say that excellence is not an accident. Excellence is intentional. And you can become an excellent communicator. You can become
Mhm.
excellent at reading people, at being more patient, at being, at responding correctly and being an artist at building bridges instead of walls. That's what I'm about.
That is huge. And I think that's the thing. A lot of people forget it's not something you're born with. It is something you can cultivate, work on, and learn. You have to, right? Like you literally are not born with people skills. Like you got to
Yeah, ask
experience
any
it.
2-year-old.
Right. Right. What isn't that good old saying? Like ask a kid, they'll tell you something blunt, like, I
Well,
learned
you
this.
observe, 2-year-olds snatching and not sharing and stuff like that. 2 and 3-year-olds is when they're learning social skills.
Yeah.
And some people need more. Actually, though, then by the time kindergarten, I love that old book by Robert Fulghum about everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. And actually, most of the groups that I work with are people that have master's and doctoral degrees. And I tell them, sometimes we need a little bit more kindergarten and less college because there at some point we quit learning kindness, and kindness is what is so needed in every culture today, certainly in ours in the US.
Absolutely. So you talk on leadership as well, and I know this ties into leadership and your top traits of leadership. Give me a few
Yes.
top traits, and how does EQ tie into leadership? Because I feel like that is something we really need, and yet it's often overlooked, I think is the best way to put it.
Well, a couple motivating things to know about leadership and EQ is that all high performing leaders have high EQ or are consciously working on it. I did an interview recently with a man who is one of the top thought leaders in the world. And he said, I don't have very high EQ. I beg to differ. I think he is humble and he's not giving himself enough credit
Right.
because, he has a lot of the qualities of high EQ. But for anybody, it's important for you to recognize that the average increase in income when you work on your EQ and raise your EQ in your life, it typically raises your income an average of $29,000, which
Oh,
that's significant. I mean,
yeah.
for
That
anybody,
is
I'd say
significant.
that's worth some attention. That's worth some time. So I do like to have a lot of fun with this. I wrote a book called Win from Within: The Heart of
Mhm.
Success and Significance. And when I started the book, I tell this tale of we were on a hike in Alaska on a
Ooh.
trail called Perseverance Trail.
Oh,
And my husband is the hiker. My husband is the weekend warrior. My husband is the one that is always been super fit and ready to go and in for major adventures. This must sound familiar. Yes.
well, I'm the one that's like, "Yeah, let's go. Let's go do something. Let's go outside."
Well, this is my husband, and we have been married for over 40 years. So
Wow,
I've had a lot of
congratulations.
adventures. And because I learned a benefit is that I have to stay fit. So my book starts with the story of that particular hike, which
Mhm.
actually I got injured on the way back, and there was a bear on the trail. And we're not talking
What?
black bears, we're talking grizzly bears.
Oh,
Thankfully, we didn't see him, but we moved very quickly with me on his back after I
oh.
fell and got hurt. And then the irony is, I finished the book. We went on a trip to Tennessee. Well, of course, you're going to Tennessee, you're going to hike.
Well, you got to, yeah, of
And
course.
I was finishing the book. Well, it was one of the reasons for that trip, quiet time to finish my book.
Mhm.
And we got on this trail, and I found myself ready to cross a stream that all this deja vu is I had injured myself in a very rocky stream. You might say, what does this have to do with leadership traits? I
Well, I'm
learned a
interested. I
lot.
know you're going somewhere with this.
Yes, I am. Because I learned a lot through all of those experiences about being prepared, about resilience, about having the right equipment, about being surrounded with the right people, with the right information, having things, I like to compare the compass because direction is more important than speed in leadership. There's just so many nuggets that I've gleaned. But what I've recently done is I've put together a packing list for the high road to leadership because that's my podcast. It's called
Yeah.
The High Road to Leadership. And if you're going on a journey, and particularly certain kind of journeys, you have to pack very well. Have you ever been on a trip where you just didn't allow time or planning and you just threw random things in a bag?
Oh, of course. Who hasn't?
And you get what you get. You make it
Mhm.
work, but you usually take more than you need.
Yep.
That's one thing. If you don't plan, you
Yep.
usually have more than you need. Well, my husband is now I give him credit again. He goes on these backpacking trips where you put a 40-pound pack on your back and you take
Oh.
everything you need for food, for sleeping, everything is on your back. He does that. I don't go on those trips. Nah.
You
But
go on those, but you
what I've learned is that those trips, when you have to carry everything on your back, you are very strategic about what you take.
Makes
You
sense.
weigh it, you plan, you decide priorities. And so I've got a packing list of leadership qualities. Then I'm going to make this available for your audience today.
Cool.
But on the list, there are non-negotiables.
Okay.
There's certain things like when you're going on a hike, you're going to spend the night. You've got to have your tent or a tarp or in a sleeping bag. You have to have something to make fire with so you can cook.
Right.
You have to have food that you're going to eat. So the 5 essentials that I want to mention today that are like those things that are non-negotiable and every leader has to have them. There's 5 and one is integrity.
Okay.
It's said that with integrity, nothing else when you have integrity, nothing else is as important. If you don't have integrity, nothing else is as important. It is like where you have to start. The second thing is vision.
Mhm.
You have to be able to vision cast and know where you're going. The third thing is respect for others, because that's the beginning of EQ, by the way, is, being able to respect other people and show respect to other people. The fourth thing is wisdom. Information is not enough. We all
Right.
have a smartphone and we can
Yes.
all Google whatever we need to know. So being able to have discernment and wisdom and make good decisions, that's where wisdom comes in. And last but not least, EQ is on the list. And I was going to put that on there.
I figured. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
So
hoping.
we can talk a little bit more about any of these 5 that you want to discuss. But I also want to say that then when I get to the list of attributes, there are a whole list of important attributes that leaders exhibit, things from consistency and focus and decisiveness and determination. But I particularly wanted to talk about agility today. But let's go back to the core values.
The
That's
5 core
the
values.
5 core values, which were integrity, vision, respect, wisdom, and EQ, or
EQ.
high emotional intelligence. Do you have any questions or comments in your experience and, things that you might want to focus in on here?
I think respect is a big one right now, especially because, like you mentioned, being able to communicate with other people and respond appropriately. We always have to think before we act. And I think that's kind of going away because we're so quick, right? Our attention span is so quick, and we are on this go 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 lifestyle, and we sometimes forget to consider how we're saying something so that it is respectful to the other person.
Exactly. That is so right. I was working with a group of leaders just this week already, and one of the leaders talked about she was dealing with an employee that has is needs to work on her EQ skills, and she mentioned that she had really offended one of her employees and told her that she was being very hateful.
Ooh, yeah.
She was actually being grouchy. And there's a big gap between grouchy and hateful. And so even our choice of words really matter.
They
But
do.
I will ask you a question that I
Okay.
often do in my seminars. I like to ask people, what comes first, respect or trust?
Ooh,
It's a
what
thought-provoking question,
comes
isn't it?
first,
What comes first?
respect or trust? I think respect.
I
I
would
think
agree.
respect comes first because, I respect my elders and I automatically try to give everyone respect until they prove otherwise. But that doesn't mean that I trust, with you a secret, with you to accomplish something. Even, I respect my family. I respect, so many people around me. That doesn't mean I trust that I should share my dreams and goals and vision with you either, because you might have those well-meaning intentions that will actually be a detriment to me. And that's about setting boundaries as well. But I think it's respect.
I think I agree, and I would like to share 2 ways that you can build respect,
Please
um,
do.
and implement it into your lives, or to show respect, because that
Mm,
is the beginning of any relationship. And, it's like you don't have to agree with people. You don't have to have their same perspective. You don't have to have the same lens of understanding. You don't have to be pro-vax or anti-vax. You don't have to be Republican or Democratic. You don't have to be, any of those things to show respect to someone else. And
Mhm.
the first way to do it is by listening instead of talking. Now, you can imagine as a communicator, well, and I'm not just a communicator, I'm a talker. Um, I have had to work very hard on this skill of listening, and I've gotten much better at it because what I have found is that people don't want to be fixed. Our tendency is we want people to agree with us. We want people to see our side of things. We go into this mode that is almost like selling
Mhm.
our viewpoint to other people when it's so much more respectful to listen to them. And then you might say, "Well, they don't listen to me." Is that a qualifier?
Right.
No,
No.
it's really not. And I don't think people wanna be fixed, but they want to be seen,
And heard, yes.
and they want to be respected. And you
Yes.
can't do that without listening. And again, there's so many examples. Another one that's simple, you're in the South, I'm in the South. It should be a national movement though of manners. I
Mm.
one of the courses I teach is on business etiquette.
Yes, manners are huge.
It's such a simple way to show respect to anybody. But where have they gone? A lot of people have forgotten that's the kindergarten over college, right?
Oh my gosh,
Kindergarten,
yeah.
you're still learning manners and the basics of don't take something that's not yours. Keep your hands to yourself, wash your
Using the
hands
polite
first.
words. I
Yes,
mean, oh my
yes.
gosh, this happens to me, so in my, part-time job, day job, it would happen to me all the time. People, will just demand something from me, and I'm like, "Well, I already give things away for free, uh, but I just want you to say please and thank you." So I often they're like, "How do I get that?" And I'm like, "Well, you just ask nicely." And I feel like I'm always on this, like, personal mission to to help society have better manners, and, man, isn't it sad that that's a thing?
Yes, it is. It really is. But those so let's just shift real quickly to agility now because
Sure.
out of actually the reality is once you get past the core values, right now, as you can imagine in this day and time, agility is huge for leaders because
Yes.
none of us have been where we are today.
Right.
We are constantly, daily, all of us having to make decisions about things that we've just never been here before. So, I want to mention that this quality, agility, you can call it reinvention. And we used to see it as a bad thing, but the
Mm,
speed of change has gotten so fast and it's not gonna change. It's not
right.
gonna slow back down. The cycles of change have gotten really big. We saw it even way before the pandemic because people were starting to see that, back in our grandparents' day, you pretty much had one career your entire
Yes.
life. And you might have like 3 jobs during your 40-year career, but you didn't have different careers. Now, the average person has 5, not jobs, careers.
Careers, yeah,
Full-blown change,
full-blown
reinvention.
changes. I'm not that old, and I've already done it more than once.
And I
So,
have done many. I have owned many different businesses, and some of them are in completely different fields. I've failed as much as I've succeeded, but fortunately, the failure part is I have very short memory when it comes to failure. So it doesn't keep me from continuing forward and keeping on trying, which is the secret to success. But I just like to encourage people that if you feel like you're in a place that you have to completely reinvent yourself, whether it's what you do, whether it's your branding, whatever it is, whether it's a job that you have never done anything like that before, we're all getting better at it. And
Right.
everybody's in the same boat together now, which actually makes it little bit simpler, but it's still difficult because the hardest part about reinvention, and it's very interesting. Do you wanna guess? Do you wanna guess what the hardest thing is
Hardest part of
that stops people, that gets them stuck?
feeling like they can. I think it's probably something to do with the self-confidence, what I always am talking about, giving themselves permission to do it,
Yes!
looking for
Yes!
that outside source of, "Yes, you can. Yes, you may." Just had to throw that in there,
I
promote myself.
love that. I love that. You're so right too, because it's
It's huge.
fear.
It
It's
is.
fear that stops people. And most in if you're sitting in a boardroom and brainstorming with other workers about change and reinvention and going forward, um, people often don't want to confess fears, and so you can
Right.
call it, what are the risks? You can rename it, but even people who are not comfortable with risk, we're we're having to push the envelope on all of
Mm.
that right now. All of us together as a society, as a culture. But I love the name of your podcast. Yes, you may.
Anytime I get to, like, work it in, I'm like, "Huh." I feel like it's like some little, like, tally score. Some weird game I'm keeping with myself.
I like it. I like it. I like it. It has so many applications.
It does, it does. But it's so important because I think, especially now with such a in your I don't the social media aspect, right? We see everybody else's lives, we see what they're doing, we see the extremes from one end to another, but we often don't feel like, "Oh, well, I can go and do that because I'm not at the top. I'm not already all the way up," right? I'm just beginning, and we second guess ourselves when one, we all love the journey, right? We all love the underdog story. We love those makeover shows. We like to watch people go from not to something great. And yet, when we're in it ourselves, we don't remember that it is okay to not be perfect instantaneously and that people are still going to support you and want to see your change because that gives them aspiration that they can also change and do something and create, which is like totally my whole story with this podcast by itself.
And I have a similar one. I surely do. I surely do. The neat thing about the journey to success, the neat thing about being on the road for progress, and you mentioned it when we started about learning and, lifelong learning, constantly going
Yes.
forward, is there really isn't a destination end point. It is a journey. And I love that. It can be frustrating. I do have a quick story to tell you about the bridge to
Good.
nowhere. This is a true story, once again, out of nature, and it happened a number of years ago. But in the Honduras, they built this fabulous bridge that crossed a river that, for the Honduras particularly, this was an architectural wonder. And they built this fabulous bridge that was built to last. And Hurricane Mitch came along with
Oh.
devastating changes. A river that had normally been big swelled to 6 times its normal size.
Oh.
Like 35,000 homes were lost. Thousands and thousands of lives were lost. It was a devastating storm, which I prefer to tell this story about Hurricane Mitch, because I've been in a Cat 5 hurricane
Yeah.
back
Oh,
in
it's scary.
2018. It was very scary. Very I'm from Florida, but I'd never seen anything like I saw. But this was in the Honduras, and what happened when the storm moved on, the river itself had moved. The
Huh.
landscape was so irrevocably changed. And again, I can bear witness to that happened to Hurricane Michael in my area. The number of millions of trees that were lost changed the aquifer, it changed a lot of things. But this bridge, all of a sudden, that had been built to last, was not over a river. It was a bridge from nowhere to nowhere because the river was no longer there.
What?
So the bridge was built to last, but it wasn't built to reinvent. And I like this story because I want to challenge you with we can be building something that we think, oh, this is going to be forever. Does it need to be forever? That's one of the things that stops people is they think, well,
Yeah.
I don't know how because I've got to make all these decisions and I'm going to be locked in once I get going. No, you
I do
have
that.
to go forward and
Yeah.
reinvent as you go. I joke about it. We're all different personality types and we need one another in order to, have teams. But I'm a ready, fire, aim
Love
person.
it.
But I need to be team.
I think you froze on me. Oh no. Hopefully you come back. Bear with us. Hopefully she'll come right back. It's so good too. This is such a good conversation. Nope, add to stream. Hey,
I
you're
don't
back.
know what
Okay, good.
happened.
You
Sorry
froze
about
on me. I
that.
was like, no, don't
Okay.
disappear.
Here we
That's okay.
are. I'm
That's
here.
okay. Welcome back.
Yay. Thank you so much. So anyway, the challenge is to not you don't want to be building a bridge to nowhere. So if you
Right.
think you have to build something permanent that you're locked into, don't go there because life isn't like that anymore. We need to be able to reinvent. I love this quote by Ernest Hemingway. It is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end.
Mm. It's so true. It's funny because I was listening to, I don't know, I think an Abraham Hicks thing this morning on YouTube, and it was like, you don't go on vacation and think, oh, I'm going to go on vacation a week and then I'm going to come back home. Oh, I just won't go because then I'll just get the same result of coming back home. It is that experience. It's that the journey itself that needs to be appreciated, not the final destination. And I think we're in a society that really celebrates the win and the championship, and we don't enjoy the process of getting there and think, what am I going to learn? Where am I going to go? Who am I going to meet? What am I going to get to accomplish? I mean, for me, anytime I figure something out, I am so proud of myself and I'm so excited. Like, that is the best feeling is when you're like, I'm going to figure out how to do that. And then you do figure it out. And I think we need to look for more of those moments in our lives and our journeys when we've got big dreams, big destinations, but see those little wins and celebrate them.
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I love it. So tell me more about this packing list,
Okay,
why
you
you
can
think agility is important, and yeah, I want to know
well, I
more of
do wanna let
what
people
I
know
need to
that
know
they
about
can
this.
get it just because it's
Yes.
fun to, it's not necessarily fun. It's good, it's healthy, it's productive to get introspective, and what I ask people to do is scale themselves on a scale from 1 to 10 of how they're doing and pick 2 to work on. You can't work on
Okay.
a list of, I think I've got 20 attributes like consistency. I mentioned some
Right,
of them,
right.
but some
Yeah.
of them empathy and compassion, steadfastness, loyalty, work ethic, discernment, positivity. There's all kinds of important characteristics on here, but I ask you to scale yourself 1 to 10. 10, you're knocking it out of the park. You're great. 1, boy, you really don't have any of that in your pack. And decide what you want to work on. There's navigational equipment in here. There's optional equipment like fun, which is not optional in my book. Got to have fun on the journey.
You gotta have fun.
And then there are some verboten, forbidden things of negativity, unforgiveness, blame, things like that. But you can get the packing list, no cost at all. You can download it and take the little test yourself, decide what you want to work for on it, beverlyspeaks.com
Okay.
/packing list. So it's
Packing list.
beverlyspeaks.com, and that's BEVERLY.
Boom.
There you go. Aren't you good? All the
But I will
technology.
also include it in the notes. We'll make sure it's everywhere this is posted as well. But
Perfect.
beverlyspeaks.com /packing list. You made it so easy to remember. That's smart.
Good.
Smart. Lower the barrier of entry, right? That's a
Good.
huge thing.
Absolutely. And I could talk for hours about these subjects. This is my favorite subject. And I want to just thank you so much for the opportunity to have a conversation with you, share some ideas, and hopefully help your audience.
Yes, absolutely. And encourage them to go and do and try and be willing to go on that journey and learn. Thank you so much for coming on today, Beverly. Everybody, make sure you check out her website, beverlyspeaks.com/packing list, to get that packing list she was talking about so you can pick two, scale yourself from 1 to 10, but then pick two to work on at a time and not overwhelm yourself with everything. And also make sure you check out her podcast, the High Road Leadership Podcast. And I assume that's everywhere they find the podcasts.
Absolutely. All the audio platforms.
All the
And
audio.
my
Yes, audio. We're gonna get
yes,
you on
mine is
video
audio.
though. We're doing it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yes, you
It was a
should.
fun experience this morning, and I just have to leave you with my signature saying that I said before any of the guys that have been saying it in the last 5 years, and that is, "The best is yet to come."
Yes, girl. Woo! The best is yet to come. Thank
Yes.
you so much for coming. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you have any questions or want to connect with Beverly, of course, leave them on the comments, wherever you may find the comments. And we appreciate you being here. And we will see you next week because, yes, you may. Give yourself permission to chase your dreams and start doing over dreaming. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful and blessed day.